My name is Christian Ashley, a seminary student and servant of God, and you are listening to the Let Nothing Move You podcast, a proud Anazal Ministries podcast. Welcome back, everyone, to the next episode of the Let Nothing Move You podcast. I'm your host, Christian Ashley, as we continue on through the book of Judges. Today, we're going to be in Judges 10 through 12, and I stress the we part of that because I'm not alone. I brought him back. He had to have a lot to say. He's going to have something to say later on when we do the end of this book too. But Karai Roe, Foreign Saints podcast, brother in the faith, fighter of heretics, slayer of the polypals. How's it going, man?
Oh my gosh, it is going great. It is going great, man. We're just trying to keep Christianity unique, man. Keep the faith potent, reviving the hearts of those of y'all that are called to die daily. It's some good stuff, man. It's some good stuff. Or as he just said, I'm currently starting a crusade against a bunch of polygamist endorsing pastors and faux scholars. It's been really great stuff.
It has been one of the most entertaining things I have seen in quite some time, and more is to come.
Man, we got informants. We got Christians doing recon out here, bro.
Yeah, Deep Throat was active. Like, man,
I'm saying, man, people showing up in my comment section under pseudonyms and stuff, bro. I'm like, all right. If y'all want to box, let's box. All right. So yeah, no, we're proving them all to be sons of Satan, and we are burying the theology. All right, we're going to have some fun here in the next few weeks.
Yeah. So a little peek behind the curtain real quick. This is the second time we've attempted to record this episode. We were going to do it earlier in the week, but unfortunately, like hotel Wi-Fi and computer issues and technological stuff, and it seems like, you know what? Maybe the demons didn't want us to work together. Well, what they meant for evil, God meant for good. Because Karai and I had an hour conversation that we wouldn't have had, where we got to go a little more in depth and all the stuff he was going through there. And I had one of the most entertaining nights of my life. There was one point where I was crying from laughing at some of the things I saw.
It's so bad.
Yeah. I mean, if you want some entertainment, if you want a new hyperfixation, like check out what Karai is doing over there. He's going to post some new videos soon as he's getting more information done. Now that the polypal files have been released to his hands.
Yes. I've just made the playlist. I've just consolidated it all. New playlist on the YouTube channel, Saint K versus the Polypals, or for those of y'all that like the more classic titles, The Gospel and Polygamy.
Well, that's out of the way. What do you say we get into Judges 10 through 12? Starting.
Let's have fun.
Oh yeah, starting in chapter 10, verses 1 through 5.
Mm-hmm.
After Abimelech, there arose to save Israel Tola, the son of Puah, son of Dodo, a man of Issachar, and he lived at Shamir in the hill country of Ephraim. And he judged Israel 23 years. Then he died and was buried at Shamir. After him arose Jair the Gileadite, who judged Israel 22 years. And he had 30 sons who rode on 30 donkeys, and they had 30 cities called Havoth Jair to this day, which are in the land of Gilead. And Jair died and was buried in Kaman.
Man, I know I said it last time, both of these points, but first point, Dodo, bro. Every time. It
never stops being funny.
Never stops being funny, bro. Imagine that dude pulling a sword out. I am the son of Dodo, bro. Nah, man, you got to name drop your mom. That's tough. But more deeply, right? The point that I made in our first attempt at recording didn't go so well, but there's a lot of judges, man. These are a lot of judges that go unnamed, unlauded, mostly unapplauded, but also all of their efforts were needed to save Israel over and over and over again. You know, like, I didn't actually mention this last time, but kind of reminds me of what Paul was saying in the book of Hebrews about the priesthood having a whole bunch of priests, because one man can't persist as the priest forever because of death. So, you know, you got to keep raising up new priests and stuff. Same thing here with these judges, right? They're imperfect and they die. But Jesus is the ultimate judge, perfect and perfectly able to save, and he ever lives to make intercession and rescue operations for his people.
And he can't ever leave that position. He's always active.
amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. So you take Paul to be the writer of Hebrews? Are you already starting on a rabbit trail? But why not?
We are starting on a rabbit trail, and it is a very recent conclusion that I've come to, just doing some digging and stuff. But yeah, I do think Paul being the writer of Hebrews makes the most sense. And aside, and on top of that, the arguments for the anonymity of Hebrews seem lacking to me once I really started to dig into it a bit, because there doesn't really seem to be an argument positively for it being anonymous, other than I just don't want Paul to be the author, and I want to try to throw mud at the trustworthiness of the scripture. So even though everybody from back then, or maybe like 95% of everyone from back then is like, yeah, no, Paul wrote it for like the first 1, 2, or 3 centuries. In the modern times, it's like, well, maybe he didn't write it. Why? Well, you already know why, Christian. You already know why. Because that's why.
That is in reference to a conversation from off screen that will make more sense later on.
You already know why, bro. You already know why. Really? But all these people are really, you don't see how that's how we argue, bro. So yeah, I think Paul wrote it.
Okay. Paul has always been kind of in my dark horse pick for that, based on his relationship to the Jewish Christianity before he actually understood things when Aquila and Priscilla taught him. But I'm not taking a bullet for any idea for that one.
Right. It's just who
on topic,
right?
On topic in regards to these judges. I can't remember the last time I ever heard anyone preach on verses like this, or if they did, it was part of a series on judges. They read through it and then they moved forward. And it didn't really stop here. And this isn't the main point of what's going on, but it is still a point being made here. In that, we don't see Tola or Jair leading an army against, the Midianites or the Philistines or anyone. But no, they're still leading Israel. Leadership isn't always fighting wars. But this is an example of fighting a war in that you are keeping people in line. It doesn't have to be a military conflict. Keeping people in line is a daily fight you're going to have to do as a leader, especially a leader of a church. So the fact that in this time there is no sign of warfare, physically sounds pretty good to me. Kind of tells me that they were doing their job. Yeah. You don't see Israel went their own way. They had no king, none of that mess in the passage is based around them. Seems like they're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Well, the judges were, Israel, less so. I think a lot of times with this stuff, it's like the status quo of judges is that Israel be wilding out, and God's like, I'm gonna show you some select judges to teach you certain things, because we don't know, take verse 1, right after Abimelech, Tola, son of Pua, son of Dodo, rises up, right? And his story could have been just as crazy as Samson's. We're just not told it. You know what I mean? But God raised up Tola because Israel needed to be saved again. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Israel, man, is just in a constant state of just wilding out, man. This is what I mean. You constantly need a judge. You know what I'm saying? As soon as the judge dies or gets too old to do anything, then all of a sudden, their stabilizing force is gone and Israel just flies off the handle again. This is why we need an intercessor, a judge who ever lives. Because as soon as you lose that, you lose yourself.
Yeah. Well, it's been a thing ever since, Joshua, that Joshua didn't name a successor. And technically speaking, the high priest is supposed to be the guy to make sure all this stuff is done. And very rarely do we hear stories what the high priest is doing around these times, because sounds like they're not doing their job, or maybe they're attempting it, but no one's listening. But we keep having a problem. Okay, judge is raised up by God. They lead Israel. Judge dies. Israel slips back. I mean, literally the next verse, when we get past these parts, is the exact same thing we've seen throughout all of Judges. And you got to know, why would God allow this? Well, he's making a point.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the point is, you don't need a leader to get this done. You need me. You will listen to this human figure for a time. You might even listen to me for a little bit. But as soon as you lose that connection in some way, shape, or form, or you choose to lose that connection, you slip back into who you were.
Mm-hmm.
These disobedient people who cause problems for themselves and others. And the whole point of Judges and getting up to 1 Samuel before Saul becomes king is like, you don't need a human king. You don't need a human judge. But you want one, because then we can say, oh, well, we didn't have the leadership, or we didn't have anything. I'm not in charge of my own life in that way, God. Like, it was all the excuses people come up with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's taking away excuses, because in Numbers they had God as king. Like the book of Numbers, once you get out of the genealogy section, really is just a foretaste of the millennial kingdom with Jesus sitting on the throne. Because who was it that was really running things in Israel in the book of Numbers? It was the glory of Yahweh in the cloud and in the pillar of fire. But as we know, who is that? That's the Son. Mm-hmm. That's the messenger of Yahweh. That is who would become Jesus Christ. All right. So it's like, you have Jesus on the throne. Before Judges, Israel rebels. So then God's like, okay, let's mediate through humans. You still rebel. And then we're going to get, as you said, all right, I'll give you a king. You're not going to like what you get, but I'll give you one. And you know what I mean? So it's like, at a certain point, and for all y'all listening, this is a gut check for all of us, right? At a certain point, you have to get to a place of maturity where you stop blaming leadership for your own personal issues. Like, not to say that leadership doesn't play a part, but like, let's just keep it a buck. There's, leaders are humans. They're not omnipotent. And even God gives you a freedom of will and choice. So what are you adding to the equation, right? In the situations in your life that fall apart and fall into ruin that God has to take you out of, right? Are you going to blame those people that should have been spiritual pillars and maybe were faithful and maybe weren't? Or are you going to focus on what you can actually control and ask yourself, okay, what did I bring to the situation that caused ruin that I need to repent of? And how do I need to change the way that I'm walking? If Israel had ever stopped to ask that question at all during the days of the Judges, they might not have needed as many judges, y'all.
I think that's huge, because a large part of this is personal responsibility. Yes, high priest should be leading, and the Levites should be doing their jobs. Yes, the judges, should make sure that there's someone after them to make sure that Israel's still watching things over. Sure. But at the end of the day, these people are making a choice to step away, to give in to sin, to become something they know they're not supposed to be. And when we remove their personal choice from this, we make it like, oh, it's just an inevitability. No, it's like they had every opportunity in the world to do the right thing. And yet they decided of their own free will to do evil, just like we do, if we're not careful.
Yeah, man. It's how atheists argue, bro. Atheists want to have their cake and eat it too when it comes to free will, How dare God judge me for the free choices that I make? But also, there's no real such thing as free will. We're just meat machines that, jump to the fife of our hormones and things. Well, you can't have it both ways, dog. You can't.
There are no absolutes. They say absolutely. Only a Sith deals in absolutes. Obi-Wan said absolutely. There's a reason that line is mocked, because it's stupid.
Yeah, because everyone knows intuitively that doesn't make sense until you mention God. Well, maybe it's not so stupid, because that's why.
Yeah.
And so, didn't I tell you? That little moniker is underneath all the spiritual foolishness, bro.
like I said, that conversation Karai and I had after the failed recording, it's like, I think too analytically and logically for my own good. And there's always that piece of me, like, if I can just explain it the right way, they can understand that their position is stupid and faulty and that it's built on sand and it'll crumble down and they'll go, oh, I need to go to truth. That's not always the case. And I know that. I know that because it's happened over and over again. But there's still that naive part of me that says, no, this still works. But at the end of the day, some people, no matter what you say, no matter the wisdom you put in their lives, they will say no to truth because I said so.
Yeah. I mean, that's really all it comes down to for quite a few people. 2 Corinthians 10:5, we destroy arguments and every lofty opinion. Now, you would be right, Christian, if all Paul said was we destroy arguments that are raised against the knowledge of God. Bro, we'd have ushered in Jesus already if all it took was just beating arguments. But Paul also says every lofty opinion. And those don't necessarily have to be based in logic. Those are some of the tougher things to really, some of the tougher strongholds to crack, where it's like, okay, yeah, you've shown me the error of my ways. You've argued me to submission. You've pinned me logically to the mat. I am feeling the effects of sin and judgment in my life. But I'm still going to hold on to this Antichrist opinion because that's why.
And I think that's something we can all need to learn. Like, I think we all know that exists in the world, but it's another thing to be presented with it and be like, I can't break down this brick wall. I can't tear the veil from their eyes. Like, some people are just going to stay that way.
Yeah. So that's all we can do, man. It's just argue and pray at the same time, not one without the other, right? You don't argue without prayer. You don't pray without arguments, because Paul says it's our arguments. It is our speech that is actually empowered by the Holy Spirit to tear these strongholds down. So you need both pieces with an understanding of what both pieces do. The old man is inside a castle made of bad arguments and anti-God opinions. The arguments are going to tear down the castle. The Holy Spirit is going to take that man of flesh that was hiding inside that castle and nail him to a cross. That's what we hope, because in that lies salvation. But that is, in a poetic way, that's spiritual warfare. That's also, in a way, what the judges are doing. That's what the judges are picturing through their physical warfare. They're picturing our spiritual warfare.
Yeah, it's Ozymandias, look upon my works, ye mighty, in despair, and all you see is ruins around the writing. And Shelley was making a great point. I can't argue against that. So next up, we've got verses 6-18, so we can see the further degradation of Israel. The people of Israel again did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, and served the Baals and the Ashtaroth, the gods of Syria, the gods of Sidon, the gods of Moab, and the gods of the Ammonites, and the gods of the Philistines. And they forsook the Lord and did not serve him. So the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, and he sold them into the hands of the Philistines and into the hands of the Ammonites. And they crushed and oppressed the people of Israel that year. For 18 years, they oppressed all the people of Israel who were beyond the Jordan in the land of the Amorites, which is in Gilead. And the Ammonites crossed the Jordan to fight also against Judah and against Benjamin and also the house of Ephraim, so that Israel was severely distressed. And the people of Israel cried out to the Lord, saying, we have sinned against you, because we have forsaken our God and have served the Baals. And the Lord said to the people of Israel, did I not save you from the Egyptians and from the Amorites, from the Ammonites, and from the Philistines? The Sidonians also, and the Amalekites and the Maonites oppressed you, and you cried out to me, and I saved you out of their hand. Yet you have forsaken me and served other gods, therefore I will save you no more. Go and cry out to the gods whom you have chosen. Let them save you in a time of your distress. And the people of Israel said to the Lord, we have sinned. Do to us whatever seems good to you. Only please deliver us this day. So they put away the foreign gods from among them and served the Lord, and he became impatient over the misery of Israel. Then the Ammonites were called to arms, and they encamped in Gilead, and the people of Israel came together, and they encamped at Mizpah. And the people, the leaders of Gilead, said one to another, who is the man who will begin to fight against the Ammonites? He shall be head over all the inhabitants of Gilead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's tough. That's tough, man. I'll jump in a sec, but I'm curious what you have to say.
I mean, I'm going to sound like a broken record again, but like, look what they do. Who are they serving? They're serving the gods of the people they beat. Again, this has happened more than once. And they keep going back to them, recognizing that they're not real in the same way. Maybe we can have that argument later on whether these are actual deities or not, actual beings or demons or what have you. But like, compared to the power of God, who has shown that he has power over them, beat them on their supposed home field advantage multiple times over, they keep going back to him. And that's illogical. Well, yeah. Because they want to keep sinning. Because they want to be told you're doing the right thing. So that's why people will continually go to the gods of today, the gods of sex, the gods of greed, pride, what have you. Be like, this makes me feel good. I know it's wrong. I know it hurt me in the past, but this time is different. I'm the one in charge, really.
I will say this, man. Like, this just looks so complicated. It's like you could just serve the Lord, but instead we're going to serve. It's just like, golly, man. Like, y'all got a list going on here, man. Like, y'all just getting it from every angle right now, bro. Because God uses the imagery of the whore whenever you are going into idolatry, And I'm petty, so I'll play along with it sometimes, bro. I'm like, dang, bro, y'all getting it in every angle, bro, at the same time, bro. You got a good one. You got a good one in God, but, you decided that you was for the streets, man. Like, that's what y'all wanted to do, bro. But something that strikes me here, man, this is a scary thing, by the way. Verse 13. Verse 13 is a scary verse, bro. Yet you have forsaken me and served other gods. Therefore, I will save you no more. Woo! If that don't make you tremble, you're an idiot. That's just what it is, man. Therefore, I will save you. Because you should see yourself a little bit in verse 13 in the first half. Yet you have forsaken me and served other gods. Yeah, that's me. That's me. You are the first half of verse 13. But praise be to God that God was not content with being the second half of verse 13. For a season, I will save you no more. And he says, all right, go. You picked your God. Let them save you. If that's your God, why are you not trusting in it to save you, right? And you see the spiritual warfare I'm talking about, right? With 2 Corinthians 10, 3-5. What is God really doing here? Is he being petty or is he presenting an argument, right? For those of us that feel a little skittish about actually arguing, or if you've heard that tired trope, you can't argue people into the kingdom. Really? Because it seems like God is trying to argue Israel back into the kingdom here. Someone should tell God that what he's doing is fruitless and pointless and dumb and prideful and all the things that people say to people that want to argue the faith polemically. This is what he's doing. God's presenting a polemic. This is an attack, a critique on their false system. If they're real, why don't you trust them? Don't you see? Your lack of trust in the day of trouble should be a witness to you that they're not God. Should be, And then verse 16 is also interesting. The comparison between ESV and CSB and how they translate this, right? When it says, in the ESV, he became impatient over the misery of Israel. And in the Christian Standard, it reads, he became weary of Israel's misery. And I've learned, and you can comment on this in the more scholarly realm, but just in my observation, I've noticed that when multiple translations that are both good have slightly different renderings, it's not a case of which word is the right word. It's a case of the word in Hebrew encompasses both and.
Yes.
Or in Greek encompasses both and. He's impatient and he's weary. And for those of y'all that have kids or have ever mentored anyone who's been stubborn, right? Because this isn't just, it's not just parents that would deal with this. If you've ever really put your all into trying to mentor somebody, you know this feeling where you're impatient and tired of seeing
you're exasperated
them in pain, Yeah. It's like, there's a part of me that wants to leave you to your own devices, but I have compassion and empathy and all that jazz. So I'm going to go to you again. But at the same time, as all of those quote unquote positive emotions are happening, there's also the negative, jealous emotion of I'm waiting impatiently for you to finally learn this lesson, big dog.
Yeah, I didn't look into specific Hebrew for this one, but I would more or less guess that's exactly the case, is that it's a word that means both of those things. It depends on the usage. And both translators decided, yeah, we'll put them there. This is going to be weary. This one's going to be impatient. And guess what? Like I said, they're not necessarily two different things. You can experience both at the same time. And the example of parenting is a great one. The example of mentorship is a great one. Teaching in general, sometimes it's like, why don't you get it?
Yeah.
How else can I say this? How else can I word this, do this, so that you understand? And that frustration makes you tired because you think you've done everything that you can, and maybe you have, and maybe they're just not there yet, or something spiritually is blocking them from it. So what do you do with that frustration? Well, you feel it. God felt it. He loves his people. Like going back to 13, where he says, therefore I will save you no more. Well, you know what that tells me? For the 18 years they were being oppressed, he was still saving them. They were alive. They had family. They had food, shelter. They could probably still do commerce because he was still protecting them, even in the midst of their apostasy.
It was a partial deliverance to your enemy, but not a full one.
So if I remove all of that from you, what are you idiots going to have?
Yeah.
Nothing, because I'm not behind you. And as seen as every country in the world that has existed for a time, held power for a time, and is no longer here, God wasn't behind them. He allowed them to be. That doesn't mean he approved of everything that they did, but he still rose them up, and he also took it away. Yep. Which he can do at his leisure. So there are some people who say, well, it's contradicting itself. God said he wouldn't protect them anymore. He wouldn't save them anymore. It's like, pay attention. Pay attention. This is a declaration. Change who you are. If you don't change who you are, I will leave you to your own devices. I will no longer save you. But what do? 16. They put away the foreign gods and serve the Lord. Does that mean they're 100% on the team? No. But they're way better than they were before. So God rescinds what he said because they changed. Conditional covenants. That's how they work, people.
And in a practical sense, right? Because people will always, especially atheists, bro, they'll be like, so the most important moral virtue in Christianity is obedience, not necessarily the morality, and they'll try to hit you with, I forgot the name of the guy, a little bit of the Euthyphro dilemma. They'll try and kind of do a soft version of that. And it's like, yes, like without getting into all the philosophy of it, just think practically. You know what I mean? Again, become that parent, become that mentor, become that coach again. When you're talking to your guys, the thing that you stress the most is, hey, listen to me, man. As long as you listen to me, we can navigate whatever else comes. But if you're not listening to me, there is no hope of getting to that morality that, you so want to get to. The gateway to the morality that you claim to value so highly is through listening to me. That's how you get there. There is no dilemma. There's just a one-way road.
Using the coach analogy is another good one. My dad's a basketball coach. He's been one for over 30 some years. And there have been multiple times where they're running the play and one kid decides he's going to do it this way, even though he's practiced it multiple times over to go this way. And suddenly he gets hit by a block or a screen he wasn't looking for. So he's not there where he needs to be. And the ball goes that way and it's a turnover. You know who gets put out of the game? Not the person who passed, the person who wasn't there where he was supposed to be. So immediately, if he was that angry, well, the turnover, so no need for a timeout. They're out. Sub in. Someone who can listen, go out and do the work.
Yep. I need somebody who can listen to me, bro. Like, it just is what it is, man. You know, bit of a sidebar, but I like using basketball these days as an analogy, since like the dude that created the game created it for the express purpose of wanting to better teach and better disciple young men into Christianity. A lot of people don't know that, but that's not even me reading into it. Like when they asked him, why did you create this game? He told them, this is why. It was used to work for the YMCA back in the day. He did. Yes. And James Naismith, that's his name.
1890s.
Yeah. About around that time. Yeah. About around the turn of the century. Yeah. Creates basketball, because they needed, a tool, something they could play, kind of all times of the year or whatever. And so, and he wanted to use it as a springboard, as a discipleship tool. So it doesn't surprise me that a lot of the stuff in basketball is like this. Wow, this is a pretty one-to-one example for discipleship. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. And that's another thing, too. I love The Art of War. Obviously, it's an extra biblical text, Sun Tzu, but it's so multifaceted. It doesn't just deal in military matters if you're paying attention. It can involve to almost anything. Sports, leadership, church. Like, hey, here's how you keep an army disciplined. Here's what to do when they screw up. Like, I can learn from these things. Learn from these things that don't look like they're spiritual at first. And you know what? Art of War, not inspired, not inerrant. But you know what? You can still learn something from it. Watching a basketball team play, a football team play, what have you, not scripture, not inerrant. But you can still learn practically from the things around you. So I guess extra lesson here. Pay attention to the things around you and what they're trying to teach you, even if they don't actively know that's what they're doing.
To say it with some spikes, everybody, you have permission from the King of Kings to go plunder Egypt, all right? You got permission, dog. That's the deep cut. That's the deep cut right there for my Torah readers, all right? Which should be all of y'all if y'all listen to Christian Ashley. That should be all y'all.
Yeah. I think, unless you have something else you want to add, I have only one more thing.
No, you go.
Okay. So notice how they end chapter 10, which very few people, when I see them preach on Jephthah, do they start in any way, shape, or form chapter 10. But this is very important for what happens next. The people, the leaders of Gilead, the high priest and the priests and the Levites, no. The leaders of Gilead said one to another, who is the man who will begin to fight against the Ammonites? He shall be head over all the inhabitants of Gilead. You notice another thing that's missing there? What does God think about this? They had the priests. They're still around. Maybe they're not doing their jobs well. Maybe that's why they didn't consult them. It's not brought up in the text. But we know they still exist. There has to at least be one person doing his job. There will always be a remnant. But everyone else, what do? We're going to make the decisions. Yes, we put away our idols. We're serving God. But their full hearts aren't behind it yet. So when certain decisions are made in 11 and 12, you're going to see why. Because God wasn't consulted first.
Yeah, this is wild. Chapter 11 is so odd because it's like they're not doing it the way that they should. But
yes,
God, or the Holy Spirit, in the inspiration of Scripture, uses their not obedient way of going about things to picture Jesus in such an interesting way, because you know me, right?
Yes.
You know me, bro. I'm looking for Jesus in my text, bro. That's what he said, bro. They wrote about me. So I'm looking for him. Everywhere I'm going, I'm looking for him, man. And as we go through Jephthah, it's like y'all were so disobedient, but the Holy Spirit still made Jephthah a type for the Messiah in so many ways. But we'll get there. We'll get there.
All right. So let's use that as a transition to start 11. We'll go through verses 1 through 3. Now, Jephthah the Gileadite was a mighty warrior, but he was the son of a prostitute. Gilead was the father of Jephthah. And Gilead's wife also bore him sons. And when his wife's sons grew up, they drove Jephthah out and said to him, "You shall not have an inheritance in our father's house, for you are the son of another woman." Then Jephthah fled from his brothers and lived in the land of Tob, and worthless fellows collected around Jephthah and went out with him.
All right. So for the sake of streamlining this process, all right, you can have fun calling the Israelites idiots this whole chapter, and I'll have fun blowing your mind with typology that you may or may not have seen before.
Okay.
All right, because I feel like I did it once before already when we was in Genesis. I feel like I cooked your noodle a bit. Let me see if I can do it again. So there's so many foreshadows of the Messiah here in the first 3 verses, bro. How is Jephthah like Jesus? Let me show you the ways. All right. Now, Jephthah was a mighty warrior. That's who he is in truth. Who is Jesus in truth? A mighty warrior. But how did he present? As the son of sin. How did the Pharisees downplay Jesus's identity in John? They said, "We know who our father is." That's a dig against Jesus's birth, y'all. Like, yeah, Joseph was convinced that Mary didn't cheat, but it took an angel to convince Joseph. Do you think that same angel went and spoke to the rest of the people, though? No, man. Like, I'm pretty convinced that Mary had to wear that as a badge of dishonor for most of her adult life, that she was unfaithful before the marriage and Joseph just put up with it. You know? So Jephthah, like Jesus, is born in a disreputable fashion, in a way that's not righteous looking to the people, you know? So that's already a point of similarity. While in truth being a mighty warrior, looks like he's a sinful creation, but really he's a mighty warrior. Verse 2, right? He's rejected by his own brothers, and they try to strip the inheritance of the father's house from him, saying, "You're not really one of our family." So then, after he gets rejected by his brothers, worthless fellows collected around Jephthah, and they're the ones that go out with him. What happens with Jesus? Born in a disreputable fashion, rejected by his brothers who try to steal the inheritance from him. And after they reject him, worthless fellows, that'd be us, Gentiles, collected around Jesus and have went out with him ever since. They have rejected Jephthah's first coming, but Jephthah will return to them a second time, at which point they will bend the knee. But we'll get there.
Okay. I see what you're setting up.
Yeah, bro.
Look, it's an easy alley-oop. Okay. I like it. So yeah, Jephthah, we'll get to the rest of that in a bit, as I'm still mulling over what you said. he, like every single judge in this book, isn't the guy. He's not the coolest of the cool. He's not the bravest of the brave. He's not the boldest of the bold. He is a nobody, a loser by Israelite custom and ideals. He should not be the main character here. Not a single judge in Israel faces this at any point in time. It's like they're the one you expect to lead. Jephthah, son of a prostitute. His illegitimacy of birth doesn't mean he's less of a person. But in Israelite culture, they saw it that way because your father decided to make a decision that affected you, even though you had no say in the matter. So we're going to put that on you. Son of another woman, his brothers say. Sounds to me like even if Jephthah's dad was married to this other woman, there would have been issues a brewing. Because you're not like me. We share a father, but not a mother. You might as well just be no relation to us at all. This would be the case for any polygamous relationship. Then he goes to the land of Tob. We don't know exactly where this is at. Some people would say parts of what would now be Syria, or maybe even like the northernmost port of Jordan. Point being, not Israel. A land of Gentiles and foreigners. Who does he have around himself? Worthless fellows. If you go back to 9, what did the people describe around Abimelech as? His truest followers? Worthless fellows, i.e., not who you want to have around you. Negative influences. People who will bring you down, people who will encourage bad behavior. So essentially, judging from the text here, he feels like he's a raider of some sort, or a brigand, an outlaw, going out, causing problems. Now, it never says exactly that's what's happening, but reading in between the lines, sounds like that may be what's going on. And to me, instead of Jesus, I was seeing an anti-proto-David in many respects.
Talk about it.
I think because the idea being David, youngest son, Jephthah, son of a different a wife, and in another respect, youngest son, no one's going to listen to you. You're the youngest. We're the oldest. You don't have the right to be king. God names David king. God will allow Jephthah later on to become judge, even though he doesn't meet any qualification for it, because God sees the heart. David's brothers, eventually along the way, they learned it, but at the start, weren't really listening to him. Like, why are you even here? Like, when it comes to him and Goliath, like, get out of here. We're the ones doing the job. We're better than you. Fleeing to another land multiple times over. Yep. David collects his mighty men, not worthless men, but he collects his mighty men. That's where I see the antithesis, really, of who David kept around himself versus who Jephthah kept around himself, because David was grounded in God. And we'll see, Jephthah has some relationship to God, but I call him an anti-proto-David because of certain decisions that are made along the way and how he presents himself and his arguments, as opposed to David.
I see. Yeah, that's clean.
Now, whether that's true or not, now you'd have to ask the big G.
That's funny.
I would say, too, the word there in Hebrew for worthless men is rakim. It is derived from the root word rek, which can mean empty, worthless, or foolish, depending on its usage. As we've said multiple times, Hebrew words very rarely have one singular meaning. So you're just going to have to use context to figure stuff out. So point being is, like, these are not like Jephthah's mighty men. These are Jephthah's, like, frat bros and dude bros, and who will cause all kinds of problems. And any other story would be the bad guy. And yet in this one, God allows them to end up on the right side.
Hey, man, sounds like the gospel to me, bro. Sounds like the gospel to me, big dog.
There you go. You got anything else for this part?
No, not for this part.
Okay. That'll take us to verses 4 through 11. After a time, the Ammonites made war against Israel. And when the Ammonites made war against Israel, the elders of Gilead went to bring Jephthah from the land of Tob, and they said to Jephthah, "Come and be our leader, that we may fight against the Ammonites." But Jephthah said to the elders of Gilead, "Did you not hate me and drive me out of my father's house? Why have you come to me now when you are in distress?" Sounds kind of familiar. And the elders of Gilead said to Jephthah, "That is why we have turned to you now, that you may go with us and fight against the Ammonites and be our head over all the inhabitants of Gilead. Now it is convenient for us." I'm sorry, editorializing. Jephthah said to the elders of Gilead, "If you bring me home again to fight against the Ammonites and the Lord gives them over to me, I will be your head." And the elders of Gilead said to Jephthah, "The Lord will be witness between us if we do not do as you say." So Jephthah went with the elders of Gilead, and the people made him head and leader over them. And Jephthah spoke all his words before the Lord at Mizpah.
So, again, continuing the typology here, and seeing as I laid it up in the first 3 verses, I think you kind of already saw a little bit of it here in 4 to 11. But just continuing, right? They've rejected his first coming, right? They rejected the first coming of Jephthah. You're not one of us. Get out of here, man. So he leaves. And that is the window of opportunity that lets the worthless fellows come around it. Again, kind of like us, right? Us Gentiles benefit off of Israel's disobedience. The worthless fellows benefited off of Jephthah's brother's disobedience. But after a time, Israel finds themselves in trouble again, surrounded by their enemies. And that is the instigating force that leads them to come back to Jephthah and say, hey, come be our leader, that we may fight against the Ammonites. And I love that construction, right? Our ability to fight against the Ammonites is in you leading us, right? Who else is that like? Give you one guess, right? But Jephthah presses them, right? You can hear Jesus saying this back to the Jews at that time. Didn't you hate me? Didn't you drive me out? Didn't you crucify me? Why are you looking to the one whom you have pierced? Hello. Why have you come to me now when you're in distress, right? And what we see here in Jephthah's ultimatum, right? And we can have the conversation about whether or not Jephthah's personal motivations in giving this ultimatum were good. But the fact, to me, I think remains the Holy Spirit, in inspiring the text to be written this way, has made this ultimatum a type of repentance, a shadowy, fuzzy picture of it, right? If you bring me home to fight against the Ammonites, I'm not sitting in a corner. I'm taking the director's chair. I will be your head. If I save your soul, says Jesus, I run the show. All right? I'm not here for behavior modification so that you can sin with a 3-piece suit instead of looking like a pauper. All right? No, I'm adopting you into the family. I'm making you part of the kingdom. And the people agree to this, right? So in these 11 verses, this is the typology we have. Jephthah, who is in truth a mighty warrior, but looks like someone of disrepute, initially rejected by his brothers, who goes out and collects a gathering of non-brothers first. After a time, is welcomed back by his initially rebellious brothers to save them from distress, and they make him head over them. Who does that sound like? You know? Like, I think of Zechariah 12, right? When God says, yeah, there's coming a day when you're going to be in trouble again, O Israel. And what will happen in that day? Zechariah 12:10, I will pour out on the house of David and the inhabitants of Jerusalem a spirit of grace and pleas for mercy, so that when they look on me, on him whom they have pierced, they shall mourn for him, as one mourns for an only child, and weep bitterly over him as one weeps for a firstborn. What happens after that? Chapter 13 in Zechariah, idolatry gets cut off. And God mentions the shepherd being struck. Awake, O sword, against my shepherd, against the man who stands next to me, declares Yahweh of hosts. Right? So it's like, why? And especially after the beginning of the chapter, right? We skip over all these judges, skip over all this time. But then we get down here to Jephthah, and then God slows down the camera footage. He slows it down. He says, hey, pay attention to Jephthah. Why? Is it because Jephthah's important? No. Like Christian said, he's another screwball. He's just as much a screwball as these other guys. So why are you making us look at him, God? Because I made him into a picture of one to come. Don't forget it for what comes later.
And if anything, if he is serving as a type of Jesus, we get to see why a human isn't good enough, despite having very similar circumstances, some similar motivations. He does want to save Israel. He does want to, lead them. We'll get to some of those motivations later on, whether they're pure or not. But as opposed to Jesus, who has the purity, who loves his people unconditionally, he'll still call them out. Don't get me wrong. But he's going to go out there and speak to them against them so that they know they are doing wrong and they need to repent.
Well, that's the fun with types, right? Every type is also an antitype. And so when you progress through the similarities highlight Jesus. And you think, oh man, Jesus is awesome, as you see him reflected in his image bearer. But then at a certain point, the image bearer fails to be able to capture the full glory of God. And then Jesus becomes even more awesome, as the truth of who Jesus is outpaces his own image bearers. That's the typology.
Anyone out there who might be upset that this is what Karai is setting up, knowing what happens later on, I think that's also part of the point.
Yes.
In the imperfection of a human being a type of Jesus means that they can only be a type. They can't be him.
Mm-hmm. In the same way that my shadow is pretty easy to recognize sometimes not, right? You go walking on a sunny day, and just next time you do that, observe the different kinds of shadows you cast. Some of the shadows that you cast are going to be very distinct, and they're going to be so obvious. Oh, that has to be the shadow of Christian Ashley. Couldn't belong to anyone else, right? We have passages in scripture like that. Psalm 22, Isaiah 53. A shadow so clear and distinct, I can see the fingernails on that shadow. Other shadows, a bit more fuzzy. They just look like, indistinct, non-distinct globs of darkness. That could be Christian Ashley. I don't know who that could be, though. That's how shadows work in the Old Testament. Some are going to be stupid clear, and when you're evangelizing, those are the ones you want to use. Your Psalm 22s or Isaiah 53s. When you're learning theology, though, now we can progress into the more fuzzier shadows. Because you know who it belongs to anyway, we can get a lot more fruit from them now.
Yes. Well said. Is there anything else you want to add? I have a couple things.
Oh no, man, it's your show, bro. I'm a guest.
You're the honored guest. Gotta look out for you, man. Yeah, gotta go try hospitality here. Give you options, okay? So when it comes to this conflict, we listed off a bunch of the people that the Israelites, they worship their gods, blah, blah, blah. The Ammonites were one of those people. And for those of you who've been paying attention, some of you will remember the time Karai was last year. Well, sorry, not the last year, the first time he was here. Well, we went through Genesis 19 together. That's kind of important for what's happening right here. Because the Ammonites were also Israel's relatives, created from the illicit actions of Lot's daughters. I'm not going to go into detail. You can go back and watch if you really want to. Probably not the best for children, but they need to learn at some point. So I'll leave that up to you parents. So that means, once again, they're related to each other. So they're not, what you're supposed to do as a family, you're not supposed to fight. It still happens because siblings are siblings. Brothers and sisters are brothers and sisters. It happens. But God, as well, had set it up to where even when Israel was conquering the promised land, they were excluded. Were they less evil somehow than the Ammonites? No, they were just as bad. You think they weren't sacrificing their children to Chemosh, Molech, and the rest? They were doing the same things. But since they were related to Abraham through, being the cousin of the Lot cousin, all that mess, they had a little more special protection than the rest that they hadn't earned one bit. And he had told them multiple times over, when they're on the approach to the promised land, leave them alone, leave Ammon alone, leave Moab alone, leave Edom alone. Why? Because they are your brothers. So how was that repaid? Hundreds of years after the fact? Oppression and death and war. Oppression, death, and war, and many other terrible things. That is their response to mercy. Well, guess what? Their times are coming. On God's time, is Ammon a nation anymore? Is Moab a nation anymore? Edom a nation anymore? No. They all got wiped out, even though still related to Israel, if there are any survivors left in any way, shape, or form. What's the difference? They weren't the people of God. Even when Israel, in the midst of her apostasy to this day, still doesn't fully accept him and who he sent as Jesus, as part of the Trinity, as part of the Godhead there, they don't have the special relationship that he has with them. So God is allowing them for a time to be the oppressor, despite the fact that he's given them everything they have. And they should be allying with their relative here.
Hey, talk about it. Goodness, talk about it. Man, that's tough. That's tough.
Yeah.
You also see God wanting to keep Israel humble as well, and not get holier than thou in a negative way.
Yes.
It's like, we're not holier than you because of anything we did, right? It's because of the faith that we should have, that we have in common with Abraham, right? Now they get it twisted and they end up thinking that it's purely a biological thing. But as the final prophet would tell us, John the Baptist, dude, God can raise up children of Abraham from these stones, dog.
Mm.
It's not purely a biological thing. It's a spiritual thing. Do you share the same faith in God that Abraham did? Right? Which is why
justified him.
All right, which is why when you consider the testimony of the revelation of Jesus Christ, that there's going to be some Ammonites in the kingdom, even if it's just one or two, right? He said every tribe, every nation, every people, every tongue, some would be there, right? So that's also something to remember whenever you're going through any of these Old Testament passages where you're looking at, people that get, entirely smited, entirely wiped out. Well, we see a vision from the end of it all. It wasn't all of them. There's at least one Ammonite that responded enough to the truth for Jesus to say, you ride with me now. There's at least going to be one Canaanite up there that responded to enough truth for Jesus to say, you riding with me now, dog. Get in my chariot. The rims are awesome. Let's ride. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. If we're going to take that literally, which I do, that means every people group that's ever been, every race, every tribe, what have you, there's at least one representative.
At least one.
Hopefully more, but you know what? Better than none.
Better than none. Because as Abraham said, man, I don't know what he's going to do, but I know that the God of all the earth will do right. Even if he doesn't give me the dossier on every case that he ever tries.
That is another thing I want to add here, is that unlike other judges, Jephthah is never explicitly stated to have been raised up by God. Look through the text. It ain't there. Does that mean he's an illegitimate judge? No. That means that God used him despite how he came into becoming a judge of the people. And we will see later on his spirit pouring out on him, which tells me that gives legitimacy. That also tells me that people who ain't the best can still have the spirit of God upon them. So it's just part of the whole process here. Israel still isn't consulting God to get what they need done because they're not there yet. They're closer. Once again, they gave up their idols willingly. Sure, they went back into a corner and they had no other way out, but they did it. And they're submitting, but they're not fully submitted yet. So they're running things the way they shouldn't be running. And yet God said, all right, knuckleheads, I'll give you a mulligan on this one. Let me help you out.
It's just crazy to me, like the multi-vocality of scripture. Because it's like 150% like holds to everything that you just said. I just think there's also this interesting like a literary typology, right? And again, people might be like, oh man, Karai, you reaching. No, I'm not. The book of Hebrews talks about a literary typology in Melchizedek. When it says that Melchizedek had no father or mother, what is that talking about? Not truly. He had a mom and a dad. He didn't descend from the heavens. Okay? He was a human being like all of us. So what does it mean he had no father or mother? This is what it means and what it means. Melchizedek is the only character up to that point, the only major character up to that point in Genesis that doesn't have a genealogy mentioned. Which means that literarily speaking, he is without father or mother. And in the spirit-inspired commentary on Genesis, which is what the book of Hebrews is, that's enough for him to be a picture of Jesus and his eternal nature, right? Which means that the very literary construction of the text can create typologies that may or may not have otherwise been there. Because the point, the Holy Spirit is trying to uplift Jesus, right? That's one of, I think, my major reasons for why certain things are included and certain things are left out of stories. Because the Holy Spirit is saying, I need to make you into a picture of Jesus. And if I talk too much about your life, people are going to miss the parallels, right? So like, to your point of why doesn't the text say that Jephthah was raised up by the Lord in the way it does the other judges? for the next point that you said, bro. Because when the Spirit of God comes on him, that's when it becomes obvious. Who else does that sound like? Did Jesus get some sort of specific announcement to all of Israel? You might mention the angels with the shepherds. Yeah, but that was private. Did he get something public? What was his public announcement to Israel? His baptism, when the Spirit of God rested upon him in the sight of everyone. Jephthah is a picture of that, but only because that's how the Holy Spirit decided to inspire the text to be written.
Yeah.
Because you could have written it like Jephthah was raised up by the Lord at the beginning, and it wouldn't actually change anything about how you preach the narrative, bro. Like, it wouldn't change how you preach, teach, and understand it. So why isn't it written that way? I think purely and primarily to make that literary connection to Jesus later.
I see your point.
You know, and that's why I say, like Jesus is even in the literary style of the text, bro. Because you can write Jephthah's story in such a way that all the parallels I've mentioned don't ever come up. You don't have to mention him being rejected by his brothers. You can just start the story at verse 4, technically, and it still doesn't really change anything. So why is it there, if not to create this literary connection?
And to make more of an impact when he does throw their past words in their face.
Yeah.
Of what they did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're right. We could have 1 through 3 gone. And we could still hear him say, hey, the reason I wasn't here in the first place because you kicked me out. And we'd still go, oh, man, poor Jephthah.
Right. And that would be rhetorically powerful in its own way.
Yeah.
To just kind of like shotgun the betrayal at the start like that.
But the 1 through 3 show us the actual story.
Mm-hmm.
And the actual resentment he must feel because of what happened.
Yep.
So it gives a greater impact when he says what he says, mentioning his past, and still accepting the position.
See, this is why studying the Bible is so fun. Because a cynical mind would say, well, which of those interpretations is true? And I'm like, dude, none of them are heresy. And God is a smart guy. It's possible they're all intended. I mean, my personal view is that they are all intended.
Yeah.
Right? You're supposed to meditate on this stuff for life, dude. So, like, kind of a short meditation if there was only ever just one thing to see.
I mean, if there was, I read this through the whole time when I was 12. I should have understood it all at the very beginning. Like, why would I ever need to reread it?
Right? Oh man, it's just fun stuff, bro. It's fun stuff, man.
And you bring a good point of how this is not a salvific issue. Like, we can have a different interpretation. You can see the typology of Jesus all over this page, and I can see David, and someone else can say, well, actually, I think he might be this person. Cool. At the end of the day, you're drawing parallels to people who have stories about them, history about them that we already know, that go, what are these? If these are real parallels, what would they actually mean?
Right.
Who is Jephthah? What is God teaching Israel then? And what is he teaching us now?
Like, this is what it looks like. This, what you and I are doing, my friend, for those listening, that this sort of meditation on scripture may be new for. This is what it looks like to love the Lord your God with all your mind.
Mm.
And you can hear in both of our voices and tones how that backdoors in loving him even more with all your heart and soul.
No, don't misunderstand us. There is absolutely a wrong way to do this.
Oh, definitely.
You can go and look through all scripture and say, well, I'm going to rename myself David, and actually I'm a new Cyrus, and I'm going to lead a bunch of people into a compound in Waco and lead it to a bunch of people dying. That didn't have to happen.
I think Jephthah's story has inspired me to join up with the poly pals, man. You could make that kind of an error, and then I'd cook you, So, please do. It'd be fun for me. But, I'm just saying, there's a much wider freedom of intellectual thought within the bounds of orthodoxy than those that preach under an antichrist spirit will try to lead you to believe.
Yeah. So looking on ahead, we have verses 12 through 28. We're going to see a little more of how things go down before things really go down. In verse 12, Then Jephthah sent messengers to the king of the Ammonites and said, "What do you have against me, that you have come to me to fight against my land?" And the king of the Ammonites answered the messengers of Jephthah, "Because Israel on coming up from Egypt, took away my land from the Arnon to the Jabbok and to the Jordan. Now therefore restore it peaceably." Jephthah again sent messengers to the king of the Ammonites and said to him, "Thus says Jephthah, Israel did not take away the land of Moab or the land of the Ammonites, but when they came up from Egypt, Israel went through the wilderness to the Red Sea and came to Kadesh. Israel then sent messengers to the king of Edom, saying, Please let us pass through your land. But the king of Edom would not listen. And he sent also to the king of Moab, but he would not consent. So Israel remained at Kadesh. Then they journeyed through the wilderness and went around the land of Edom and the land of Moab and arrived on the east side of the land of Moab and camped on the other side of the Arnon. But they did not enter the territory of Moab, for the Arnon was the boundary of Moab. Israel then sent messengers to Sihon, king of the Amorites, king of Heshbon, and Israel said to him, Please let us pass through your land to our country. But Sihon did not trust Israel to pass through his territory, so Sihon gathered all his people together and encamped at Jahaz and fought with Israel. And the Lord, the God of Israel, gave Sihon and all his people into the hand of Israel, and they defeated them. So Israel took possession of all the land of the Amorites who inhabited that country. And they took possession of all the territory of the Amorites from the Arnon to the Jabbok and from the wilderness to the Jordan. So then the Lord, the God of Israel, dispossessed the Amorites from before his people Israel. And are you to take possession of them? Will you not possess what Shamash, your God, gives you to possess? And all that the Lord our God has dispossessed before us, we will possess. Now, are you any better than Balak, the son of Zippor, king of Moab? Did he ever contend against Israel, or did he ever go to war with them? While Israel lived in Heshbon and its villages, and in Aroer and its villages, and in all the cities that are on the banks of the Arnon, 300 years, why did you not deliver them within that time? I, therefore, have not sinned against you, and you do me wrong by making war on me. The Lord, the judge, decided to stay between the people of Israel and the people of Ammon, but the king of the Ammonites did not listen to the words of Jephthah that he sent to him.
Yep, because that's why.
I hate how right you are. Cool story, bro. I'm going to think this way instead.
I'm telling you, bro, every heresy, bro, comes down to that at some point, bro. Like,
it's so frustratingly simple that I'm like, it can't be. There has to be something higher. But no, I'm wrong. And I hate that.
Oh, man. I'm telling you, bro, you just don't see how. I don't know what to tell you, bro. Like, it's the sword and shield of heresy, bro. Because that's why, and you don't see how, bro. Oh, my gosh, man. Oh, that's so terrible. But anyway, about some, some intellectualness, some real intellectualness here.
Yes.
As I use that totally real word, intellectualness.
Sure. If Shakespeare can do it, why can't we?
Right. The focusing on the dispossession, the possession and dispossession of land is, I think, a point in favor of people who would say that the passages that mention total destruction are not really talking about a complete wiping out of all the people, but just enough of a victory to take over the area. Now keep in mind, that's not necessarily me arguing for that position. That when it talks about total destruction of people during like the Joshua and Promised Land conquerings, that it is actually Near Eastern war hyperbole. Because I don't actually have a position on that yet. Like I know that sounds weird to say. Say, okay, you're usually like super decided. I know. People hate me for it. But on this point, I'm truly in the middle and I'm still kind of deciding. I was staunchly in the camp of God wiped everybody out. And I was cool with it. But then, I'm like, the people that are arguing for, Near Eastern war hyperbole actually have, I think, some valid points in their corner that are worthy of some thought. So that's why I point this out here, because it's not a verse I've ever heard people that espouse that view use. But I just noticed it in you reading it now, like, that would back them up, though. That would be a feather in the cap. 22 and 23. Okay. Especially 22, 23, 24, just all that section where it's talking about possession and dispossession of land.
Okay.
Right? And it's like, aren't these people that Israel should have wiped out completely? Yeah, but apparently we're just talking about the possession and dispossession of the land, which is what the Near Eastern war hyperbole view says total destruction is talking about anyway. So to then find that conversation here is like, okay, I'm seeing the feathers in your cap, people.
Yeah, I disagree completely, but I could see where you would get that argument from.
Right. You know what I'm saying? So, I gotta do some digging into like some other non-biblical ancient Near Eastern war texts to see if other cultures talk similarly to the language of Joshua and Judges and all that stuff. Because if they do, then they might be in the lab cooking about this is just unique to the genre. Everyone said total destruction back then, and no one really meant it literally. To me, that sounds like because that's why, but it wouldn't be if you could show me
historical
extra. If you could show me some manuscripts of other cultures that like talk just like Judges and stuff, then it would be a lot tougher for me to refute it.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of contemporaneously are records we have from Egypt when they would go into Canaan and later Israel. I think it might even be Shishak, who would have said something like, I took control over and laid waste to, but there's never any verbiage that I remember of being like I wiped out or totally destroyed anything there. I'd have to look that up again. It's been some time.
Yeah, like I just have to look into it, like 1 Samuel 15:3 is the other one that ironically kind of argues for them because you get a different wording in 15:3. Like that place, I think God did mean wipe them all out.
Yes.
Or at least 99.99% of them or something. But like he doesn't word it the same way he words the commands earlier in Joshua and Judges. He does word it differently. So it's like, okay, so if that's what you meant back here, why did you say it differently here in Samuel's day? I'll admit, I don't have an argument against that. Like the fact that 1 Samuel 15:3 is so unusually explicit about it would seem to, ironically, in a Uno reverse card kind of way, mean that in the earlier texts, he might not have meant what he clearly said in 1 Samuel. And yeah, I'm like, you might be cooking. You might be, So I thought it was one of those views that apologists take to try to, just because you're squeamish about wanting to rep Yahweh completely, but I don't know, like they might have something tangible here.
You see, this is why you're on, man. I went blazed right completely by those, didn't give them a second thought. I still don't agree with the assertion of the other side, but I wouldn't think about it if you hadn't have brought it up. Like, can I get to the point where I can see where they're coming from? Well, before that moment, my answer would have been, who are these idiots? What are they saying? Like, okay, but there may be a point to it to where you could get that interpretation, but I ain't there. I am totally gone. You can't leave them there because of what they're going to do, as we see multiple times over in Judges,
like,
even in Joshua.
Right. You know what I'm saying? But I'm like, but if he doesn't wipe everybody out, now what the atheist got to say? like if we dig up history and it turns out he actually spared them more than we thought, now what? Now what you got to say?
I think that's an intriguing debate.
The
more I think about it, yeah, I've still planted firmly where I'm at, but like I'm willing to listen.
Yeah. It's like, okay, like you're not just, this isn't just coming out of a desire to escape the clear implication. Like you might have some real textual reasons to say what you say. Yes. And I might actually at some point change my mind on it. We'll see. I just, I'm caught up with the poly pals right now, dog. I'm fighting a different fight right
I will say this is way more academically honest than the poly pals.
now. Isn't it?
By the way, we didn't come up with the term for that. We got to shout out our friend later on. My newest friend. They don't know me from Adam, but we're pals.
Like, when you come on, she is getting a shout out for sure.
Okay,
for sure.
Yeah, look at the comments for some of Karai's newest videos, and you'll understand what we're talking about a little more.
Yeah,
we're trying to save stuff for other projects.
Right.
Also, we need to focus on judges for some reason. The point of the show.
Right.
Whatever.
I'm trying to keep my honored guest title here.
Yeah. So, what I will say here, what immediately jumped out to me reading this is Jephthah's cunningness. Like, why does there have to be a war at all, guys? Why don't we establish diplomatic relations first so that we don't have to fight and no one has to die? What a brilliant idea. In a time where most people wouldn't pull this tactic.
Yep.
Maybe he's tired from his years of alleged banditry and the like. Maybe he's like, you know what? He's not a full pacifist. If anything, if he was, he'd be a martial pacifist, which I think we should all be. But that's a separate issue for a separate time. But he's like, look, why are you doing this, guys? Like, he probably knows God is behind the reason why they're attacking because of Israel's apostasy. But like, why don't I hear it from them? I don't think they know that they're working with God for now, and now God's taking his protection away from them. Let's see what they have to say. So they give this BS reason for why there should be a war. And if you look at history of any nation, and when I say any nation, I mean any nation, including the one we live in right here and now, a lot of people will not always have a good reason to start a war. Now, sometimes there is a good reason to start a war, but they will use whatever justification to start it to make it look like the other person is the aggressor and we're just defending ourselves, or we need the resource that they have because they're not giving it to us. They're not being worthy trading partners. The vast majority of wars, there is a casus belli for your side to feel like you're on the right side of history. Nazi Germany didn't think they were in the wrong to do what they did. They had taught and indoctrinated people to think, hey, it is a good thing we are doing it. We are the ones bringing and spreading our glory so that they can get under our thumb, our control, and we can make sure they run things right. And also we're going to kill all the Jews because they caused all the problems in the first place that got us here with the Great Depression. It was the depression that happened before the Great Depression and the like, because they're working against us. Amongst many other things, they levied against the Jews for no good reason.
Now, this is why I like talking to you, bro, because I learn something every time I talk to you, right? But and your audience is probably way more intelligent than me, but I'm just asking a definitional question. When you say casus belli, what do you mean by that?
Reason for war.
Okay, all right. That's what it seemed like in the context of what you said.
A better translation, but like that's what it means to me. Okay, like, this is the reason we're fighting. Trying to think of we're fighting, no taxes without representation would be a casus belli for the American Revolution.
Got you. So it's
it wasn't like the only one.
It's like a slogan that is your reason.
Kind of, yeah. It can be used like, remember the Maine.
Yeah.
Did the Maine actually explode because of Spanish saboteurs, or was it because of a boiler inside that was not treated the way it should have? No one knows. Either way, doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, we decided, remember the Maine. So we're going to take all your Spanish overseas colonies and wipe your butts because you kind of suck now, Spain, and we're an emerging superpower and you're not anymore.
Right. Casus belli. Got it.
Yeah. Like invasion of Poland. We have treaties. The assassination of Archduke Ferdinand. Same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So the Ammonites are saying, well, bro, that's our land you took. Like, they took it from us in the first place, so you should have given it back to us when you conquered it. And Jephthah's like, time. Flag on a play. No, that's not how conquering works. When you lose something, it's not yours. God allowed you to lose this place, and he allowed us to gain it, even though it was formerly your territory. If we're going to take your precedent that this is your territory originally as true.
Yep.
Also, by the way, it's been 300 Years. You didn't think to send envoys day one when they took the land back, when they conquered it from Sihon and Og, and be like, hey, that's our land. Can we have it back, please? We'll be friends. They didn't use it then. Nobody used it 100 years after, 200 years, but you wait 300 years, you're looking for an excuse to justify why you're at war. Because
they knew it was because of God. Like, if you remember, God told Israel, I've put the fear of you in their hearts, of the people that you're going to go conquer. So, like, and they heard about all that happened in Egypt. So, like the reason your ancestors didn't send envoys is because they knew it was God that was putting belt to behind, bro.
Yes. But my point in all that is that many leaders of, once again, every single nation that has ever been in existence will try and give a justification for why they can go to war for the wrong reasons to make their people feel good. Because it turns out people don't like fighting for a war under false pretenses or for the sake of conquest, unless you stylize it well, unless you propagandize and hype them up well and go, no, actually, no, it's our sovereign right to do this. We have to do this. Or we're just taking back stolen territory. It's not new. There's nothing new under the sun. But I opened up as I did there with Jephthah being cunning because I want to show him some praise. We're going to have some things to say against him in a little bit, but for right here and now, smart.
Indeed.
And I think he also brings up a great point too. Is it 23 and 24? He's like, look, we can settle this God be God, you know. Like, you remember this parting of the Red Sea and the like, and that's why you guys didn't do it forever ago. Was that the fight you really want to get into? Because you know how that ended. He goes, continues. You remember what happened to Balak? And the Midianites that were working with him? Yeah, sure, that caused problems and Israelites died, but guess who died more?
Guess who got
People working
more?
against God. So he tries. Like, he does what he can to prevent the loss of life, and that's something very admirable. Even working against people who are working against God. So when it does, they have their casus belli, Israel does, of like, look, you're attacking us for false reasons, so we are totally justified to have a justifiable war.
Makes sense. No, that makes sense.
All right. Anything else you want to
add? No, not in this part. No, because that's why. That was my addition, bro.
All right, so let's get to the simplest part of this tale. No one's ever argued about anything that happens in the midst of it.
Of course not.
Definitely never. Yeah. It's so simple. Any idiot can understand it immediately. 29 through 40. Then the Spirit of the Lord was upon Jephthah, and he passed through Gilead and Manasseh and passed on to Mizpah of Gilead. And from Mizpah of Gilead, he passed on to the Ammonites. And Jephthah made a vow to the Lord and said, if you will give the Ammonites into my hand, then whatever, some of your versions may say whoever, well, it turns out it doesn't matter at the end, and we actually get to the Hebrew, comes out from the doors of my home, of my house, to meet me when I return in peace from the Ammonites, shall be the Lord's, and I will offer it, some other versions may say him, same thing applies here, up for a burnt offering. So Jephthah crossed over to the Ammonites to fight against them, and the Lord gave them into his hand. And he struck them from Aroer to the neighborhood of Minnith, 20 cities, and as far as Abel Keramim, with a great blow. So the Ammonites were subdued before the people of Israel. Then Jephthah came to his home at Mizpah, and behold, his daughter came out to meet him with tambourines and with dances. She was his only child. Besides her, he had neither son nor daughter. And as soon as he saw her, he tore his clothes and said, alas, my daughter, you have brought me very low, and you have become the cause of great trouble to me. For I have opened my mouth to the Lord, and I cannot take back my vow. And she said to him, my father, you have opened your mouth to the Lord. Do to me according to what has gone out of your mouth, now that the Lord has avenged you on your enemies, on the Ammonites. So she said to her father, let this be done for me. Leave me alone 2 months, that I may go up and down on the mountains and weep for my virginity, I and my companions. So he said, go. Then he sent her away for 2 months, and she departed, she and her companions, and wept for her virginity on the mountains. At the end of 2 months, she returned to her father, who did with her according to his vow that he had made. She had never known a man, and it became a custom in Israel that the daughters of Israel went year by year to lament the daughter of Jephthah the Gileadite 4 days in the year.
It's such a failure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, especially after, and that's kind of why, Why do I build up the typology here? Because here we have the antitype. You know, we saw all the ways that he was like Jesus, and now we find a pretty significant way that he's not like Jesus. Jesus sacrificed himself for us. In this case, Jephthah sacrificed his child for his own stupidity.
Yes.
One of the biggest anti-type flips you'll ever see on a type of Jesus in the scripture. Man. And in that, and even in that, there's a lesson, you know? If they look like Jesus but want to sacrifice you instead of themselves, there might be something off. There might be something off, you know? But additionally, it's like, you know, to your point of people not doing their jobs, Jephthah wasn't doing his job. He should have known the law. And I don't know. It might say something also about those that are teaching the law. That, okay, this guy who's recognized as a judge, who's recognized as your warlord and leader, you know, you want to talk about stuff that wasn't mentioned in that whole buildup. At no point are the Levites ever talked about.
And that's why I stressed that.
You know? But if they had, I would like to think a Levite would have mentioned Leviticus chapter 5.
I'm glad you went
4.
there.
If
Go ahead.
anyone utters with his lips a rash oath to do evil or to do good, any sort of rash oath that people swear, and it is hidden from him. In other words, and he doesn't realize how stupid it is when he first gives the oath. When he comes to know it, and he realizes his guilt in any of these, and confesses the sin he's committed, he shall bring to Yahweh as his compensation for the sin that he has committed a female from the flock, a lamb or a goat, for a sin offering. And the priest shall make atonement for him for his sin. So, what was that, atheists, about God commanding Jephthah to do this? Because I know they still argue this, but they don't know the law.
No.
They don't know the law. Don't know it at all. And it brings to mind 1 Timothy chapter 1, verses 5, 6, and 7. Paul writing, the aim of our charge, the point of Christianity, is love that issues from a pure heart and a good conscience and a sincere faith. Certain persons, by swerving from these, have wandered away into vain discussion, desiring to be teachers of the law without understanding either what they're saying or the things about which they make confident assertions. People make confident assertions about Torah and Tanakh all the time. And Paul, with all due respect, Paul says, they don't know what they're talking about.
It's literally that simple. I think that Jephthah in this situation is both a victim of being poorly taught, but also he victimizes himself by not thinking through rationally about what he said. And he has no one to blame but himself for what he does. Like, look, yeah, we can say all along, you know, he didn't have a Levi. He knows enough of Israelite history to tell the king of Ammon, hey, you have no historical precedent for this war. Mm-hmm. That's great. He knows his history. We all should know our history. But if you don't know God's law, his true law, you're screwing yourself over when you do something stupid that he said, hey, if you do this, there's a way out.
Yep.
Jephthah doesn't.
Yep. I'll even give you a way out.
Yep. So this has been hotly debated for years, whether or not Jephthah literally sacrifices his daughter to God. Mm-hmm. The text doesn't say, hey, he put a bunch of sticks out, a bunch of wood, put her on a fire, and did that. That's where there's a lot of ambiguity here, if that's what you're looking for. Other people will say, no, he just left her off to become a perpetual virgin for the rest of her life. And that was a sacrifice, was him never having an heir because she was his only relative, only child. That could still be what happened. But I really think we're hitting the copium on that. I've been very guilty of that in the past. Because what we do is we look at the text and we say, okay, in light of who Jephthah is, well, he's working on God's side. A man of God cannot sacrifice a person on a pillar or anything of that like. And also, don't you remember Hebrews? Hall of Faith. Jephthah, he's in, guys. Mm-hmm. So If he's in the Hall of Faith, you couldn't possibly have done something this bad. Well, think about that for a second. When we look at sin, there is no such thing outside of the sin of the blasphemy against the Holy Spirit as a sin that is greater than another sin. We have our personal bugaboos, and we go, oh, nope, that one's worse than that one. Let me get the tier list out, and we'll put the pictures up. This is S tier. This is C tier. All this. It's like, that's us. That's not God. Me stealing Tic Tacs as a 6-year-old from a Walmart is enough to separate me forever from God. Well, Christian, you were 6. You didn't know. You were young. It doesn't matter. It was sin. And that's what he can't abide. So every single person listed in the Hall of Faith that we have a lot of history around, we probably have something where they showed they weren't as righteous as they were at other points in their life. But I don't even need that. I don't need the text to tell me they were sinners. I just need their name listed. Because there's only been one free from sin for all of his life, and that's Jesus. So if you say Jephthah can't be in that group because he committed this horrible, heinous thing, well, I don't know what to tell you, but he doesn't deserve to be in a group in the first place, even if he never did that.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you're kind of displaying, the person saying that about Jephthah is displaying a basic misunderstanding of two things. One, the gospel, and two, the very passage that they appeal to. Like Hebrews 11:32, where Jephthah's mentioned, and just mentioned, like he's only just name dropped. It's just a greatest hits of what they did. And what more shall I say? Time would fail me to tell of Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, of David and Samuel and the prophets, who through faith, does it say through righteousness? No. It says through faith, who through faith did a bunch of cool stuff. All right. He lists some of the stuff, Jephthah didn't do everything in this list, right? He didn't stop the mouth of a lion, right?
Yeah.
That was Daniel. And to be honest, Daniel's not even name dropped. He's just in that collection of and the prophets.
Yes.
Stop them, right? So, like, Paul's not even trying, because, if you want to say the unknown author, fine, whatever. Right? Hebrews writer, Paul, he's just giving a flyby, big picture view. Look at what they did through faith, not through righteousness. This whole point in the book of Hebrews is, hey, Jews, don't get seduced back into the old covenant system that is obsolete because of the new covenant. It's about faith in God, not about your subjective estimation of your own righteousness. As proof of that, let me show you, even in the Old Testament, what people did purely by faith and not by righteousness. That's Paul's rhetorical point in bringing this up. So, like if anything, like you said, like the fact that he's mentioned in the Hall of Faith is almost proof positive that he wasn't a righteous dude, because the prophets get an ancillary mention. The people that get names dropped are the ones that had some issues.
David murders a man by proxy to sleep with the man's wife.
Yeah. And Jephthah very probably sacrificed his own daughter, Again, to give credence to the people that say otherwise, that she was just like given over to the temple, I will say this. If the final sentence in chapter 11 wasn't there, it'd be a lot easier to argue it to me. Like if it just stopped with halfway through 39, if it just stopped with 39a, you might have a point.
Yeah. But
it would be,
it keeps going.
I get it. Yeah, it would be odd for her to focus on, man, I'm going to die. I haven't had sex, or at least, I was a much more carnal individual. So I actually completely understand that lament. Yeah, that's tough. If you sacrificed me in my teenage stage, I'd be like, oh man, I was on lock with my girlfriend this weekend. Oh man, That being said, it would be odd for the rest of the community to lament the fact that I didn't get it in. That would be odd, Yeah. The daughters of Israel went year by year to lament the daughter of Jephthah. Lament is a strong word, bro. other people don't lament the fact that you're a virgin when you die. You might lament that, but other people don't. Other people would lament your death.
Yeah, and they wouldn't lament like the rest of your life you had to remain celibate.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, sure, be like, man, poor kid. Like, if she could have gotten married, have kids, I'm sorry about that, but I'm not lamenting over that. I lament when there's tragedy. The book of Lamentations is called that because it is a tragedy what has happened to Jerusalem, to the people of Judah, who, if they had just done what they were supposed to do, would not have suffered like this.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lament.
I agree. And it's just tough, man. It's like you want to give someone a reason for why theology matters. Show them Jephthah's story. If Jephthah had just studied his Awanas course a little better, and I usually rag on Awanas, but an Awanas kid would know we don't sacrifice other people.
Yes.
Like, for all the flaws, they would know that much, bro. You know? So it's like, oh man, bad theology hurts people. And not just people, it hurts you, it hurts the people close to you, hurting yourself. God's sitting here like, hey man, I'm willing to absorb the penalty of what you did. And you're like, no, I'll take it in full. Like, the point of that out was mercy and to teach you. I'm giving you mercy because I'm not letting you suffer the effects of a foolish vow. Notice that God also says not just a foolish vow to do evil, but also a foolish vow to do good.
Yes.
You know, you might be overtaxing your own ability and righteousness. You might not actually be understanding exactly what it is you just promised me right now. And so, even though you should keep your vows, if you realize it was stupid, I'll give you an out, but the out will be a little costly. You will have to sacrifice something. Just, you won't lose what you thought you had to lose.
Yeah. Like, just as an imagined scenario, say your church was about to plant another church. You say, we vow to plant this church next month. Well, imagine it's 2020 and the next month is March and everything shuts down. Do you not think God would say, look, you intended good with your vow. You didn't know the world was going to end the way it did. So don't plant the church right now.
Yeah.
All you're going to do is hurt people.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to hold you to your word when you say stupid things.
It's like, you didn't know that I was going to send a plague on the earth at this time. You didn't know that.
Yeah.
You know? And if anyone's offended by the fact that I just put COVID on God, I don't know, read the Old or New Testaments. Like, I don't know. Like,
who's in charge of nature again?
Who's in charge of all that? Who's the one that sends pestilence and disease and tough things? Come on, bro. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing here, bro? I'm shaking everything that can be shaken so that the kingdom that can't be shaken can be shown to be fixed. Come on, bro. That's Hebrews on you, bro. That's Bible.
And I know there are people out there who try and like give Jephthah the benefit of the doubt here with how he words his vow. And that's even like, you know, when you see, especially in the ESV, the footnotes that say whoever, whatever, that means that from the text that we have, one translation will say this because it's copied by imperfect human hands, and another translation will say this. More than likely, that's what that means, or it's an explanation of what the word means, or something like that. So some people say, well, if he said whoever, that meant that he had a person in mind, and he was tainted by the world, and he was going to sacrifice someone. Well, if they say it's whatever, then that means that he's stupid because whatever literally means whatever. Or let's just look at when the actual Hebrew is shown there, the word is aser. Aser comes from the root word asher. And like, once again, many words in Hebrew, an incredibly multifaceted word. And what it basically means is every single English word that we have that can be turned into a question, like who, what, where, how, etc. You can put in this section, the aser would be whoever, whatever, whichever, wherever, all that. Point being, I'm just giving you a Hebrew lesson for the sake of Hebrew. It's like Jephthah is being stupid with how he's wording it. He would have said, the first animal I see that comes out of my house, I will sacrifice to you. By the way, why does he have to do this at all?
It's not commanded, that's for sure.
Oh, and by the way, who the hell is he to sacrifice anything to God? Is he a Levite now? And also, some of you shook when I said hell. Like, no, I'm using that not for the sake of shock value, but to get you to think.
That's a good point, though. I never really thought he's not a Levite. Like he's not.
He has no authority to do this except the human appointed authority said you're in charge.
Yeah,
so we know what that does. Swells the ego, makes you think a little more important than you are. Could that be a contributing factor for why he does what he does? Possibly.
Could be.
But it's, once again, a problem of his own making. God never said, when I give you the victory, sacrifice to me. Or, when I give you the victory, have the priest sacrifice to me, is how he would have worded it. Jephthah creates his own self-inflicted hell because he wasn't paying attention to everything around him and he wasn't being careful.
Man. Ego and not knowing the scripture. That's wild.
Yet this same man has the Holy Spirit latch upon him and fight against God's enemies. Both are true things. God can use anyone, and the same people that God uses can fail himself and others.
Mm-hmm. As we do all the time.
It gets sad. This is a sad story. You're in a sad book, by the way. I don't know if we're 12 chapters in, or 11 chapters in. We're about to get to 12. I don't know if you've been paying attention or not. This isn't a happy book. It's like, but don't let the tragedy pass you by, right? Understand why it's tragic. It's tragic because they don't know their God and they don't know his law. They don't know what he said. So they end up doing crazy stuff, right? Idiotic atheists and it's mostly atheists that I see that want to argue judges, by the way. I don't think atheism is really a threat per se, but they're the people that I see that like to bring up Jephthah all the time and want to put that on God. The entire point of judges is they didn't know him. But I understand. Hooked on phonics is tough for sons of Satan when they open up the Bible. I get it. You got all these degrees from Harvard or whatever, but the second you open up the Bible, you read worse than my 2-year-old. Just can't track anything in the text. I get it. But for those of us that have the Spirit of God in us, we got to realize, bro, the point of judges is, this is what you start, it's to hold up a mirror to yourself and say, hey, this is what you look like when you don't know what I said either. It's tough, man. And it's sad. This is exactly what happens when people who are taught even the barest semblance of what a relationship with God is don't know the totality of it and then don't experience the totality of it by giving themselves up to him.
Mm-hmm.
That is the part of the huge point of judges. You are all lost and unsaved without me, God, ruler of your life. You don't need a king. You don't need a judge, but I'm going to give them anyways because for some reason, sometimes that keeps you in line. And even then, knowing the history of the books as we do, that's not a guarantee. But I'll give you what you want.
Tough,
Anything else you have to add for this part before we go to 12?
Nah. I just think other people make such a bigger deal about it than, like, to me, the lesson is real simple, you know? And to me, like first time reading Judges, I called it through. But that's because my first time reading Judges was connected to my first time just reading the Tanakh straight through. So, you know, just reading it like I would a Harry Potter book, you know, no notebook next to me, just read it like a story, right? To the best of my ability, right?
Yeah.
And you know, I got to Judges, read this part, and I was like, it just easily came, oh, why didn't he do it? Why didn't he do Numbers? Why didn't he do the Numbers thing? Or sorry, the Leviticus thing. Why didn't he do that?
Yeah.
Leviticus lets you sacrifice a female lamb or goat to get out of the stupid vow. And it just hit me. He must not know that. Because what father, if he knew that, wouldn't do that? So it's like, yeah, it's a very simple lesson. Bad theology hurts people. How do you get good theology? Read the book, study it, know it.
Be taught well and teach well.
Yeah. That to me really is the lesson here, bro. Like, know your Bible, or else you might end up foolishly killing something in your life that is alive that you don't have to kill?
Look at that. We're almost at 2 hours. Unprecedented. You know what? We got an entire chapter left, baby. Chapter 12, 1-7.
Yes, sir.
The men of Ephraim were called to arms, and they crossed to Zaphon, and all said to Jephthah, "Why did you cross over to fight against the Ammonites and did not call us to go with you? We will burn your house over you with fire."
These people.
And
bro.
Jephthah said, escalation, man. And Jephthah said to them, shut up. Jephthah said to them, "I and my people had a great dispute with the Ammonites, and when I called you, you did not save me from their hand. And when I saw that you would not save me, I took my life in my hand and crossed over against the Ammonites, and the Lord gave them into my hand. Why then have you come up to me this day to fight against me?" Then Jephthah gathered all the men of Gilead and fought with Ephraim. And the men of Gilead struck Ephraim because they said, "You are the fugitives of Ephraim, you Gileadites, in the midst of Ephraim and Manasseh." And the Gileadites captured the fords of the Jordan against the Ephraimites. And when any of the fugitives of Ephraim said, "Let me go over," the men of Gilead said to him, "Are you an Ephraimite?" When he said no, they said to him, "Then say Shibboleth." But he would say Sibboleth. It's curse us people with lisps, for he could not pronounce it right. Then they seized him and slaughtered him at the fords of the river, of the Jordan. At that time, 42,000 of the Ephraimites fell. Jephthah judged Israel 6 years. Then Jephthah the Gileadite died and was buried in his city in Gilead.
That's tough, man. Got him off the accent. That's nasty work right there, man.
To make a bad situation worse, we get Ephraim. So if you guys remember last time, last time in Judges 8, the exact same thing happens. But Gideon's in charge, not Jephthah. So I think we're dealing with contrasting people here. Gideon, to his credit, plays skillful negotiator and manipulator. Said, "Oh, guys, it's great. We've got the victory. And like, you've come to support us now. This is a good thing. Like God is working through this. And what have I done in comparison to you? Like, you're so great. You captured these guys. I didn't do that." And that stops a civil war from happening or a battle. Jephthah, possibly 2 months later, after his daughter has just died, sees these ingrates come in, depending on how the chronology of this is, we're not entirely sure, demand why they weren't brought into this, and then threaten the man to burn down his house after he's lost his daughter. No wonder he responds the way he does. It's not right. He should have played diplomat like he did with the Ammonites. I mean, I blame him, but I understand him.
Well, it's one of those things, right? Where it's like he's going to have a lot of pensive anger here that he wants to vent.
Yeah.
At the same time, right? I know a little something, and you know that I do, Christian. Know a little something about people that have already pre-decided to fight you and don't really care about, what did you call it? The corpus belli? They don't really care about that.
Casus belli.
The casus belli. They don't care about a casus belli, bro. They'll take, whatever bargain bin casus belli I need to be able to stab you, which is really what I want to do. I don't need a reason. I just know it would be socially advantageous to me to have one. But I don't need one, you know? I almost wonder if that's where these guys are, bro. Are you really going to burn my house down with fire because you didn't risk life and limb? Like, is that you're gonna fight me because a common enemy went down and you didn't have to sacrifice anything to do it? That seems suspicious. But remember the sword and shield of heresy. This one is you don't see how? You don't see why I might hate you? Well, I mean, if you gave me a reason why I might hate you, because that's why.
And he does. He's, "I told you to come over here 2 months ago."
See? You see the brain rot on display, bruh.
And they keep goading him on.
Like, what was I supposed to do, bruh? I gave you the call. The enemy was at the door. The ops were there. I had to do something. What do you want me to do? You know? I don't know. I wonder if Jephthah just again, we don't live in most of us listening don't live in places where you actually where you're actually confronted with this and you actually have to make a decision, right? So we're backseat gamers that don't play games.
Mm.
And then the worst, all y'all that play video games, ever been critiqued by somebody that doesn't play a video game? And the critique is always something that the mechanics of the game don't let you do. Hey, why don't you just do this? Oh, well, there's not a button press that lets me do that. I have to play the game within the rules of the virtual reality that I am constrained by. You know what I'm saying?
You see the 4 dialogue options here? The one you suggested isn't amongst them.
It's not here. Why doesn't Batman just shoot them with the gun? Because I don't have a gun on my gadget option, bro. I couldn't pick one if I tried. All right.
Because he's Batman.
Reality is like that. See, that's another because that's why you're getting it, right? See, reality is like that, right? Why didn't you just make peace with the non-peaceable people? Because, you dingus, that's not an option this time. They threatened to burn down my home because they didn't fight. Okay? A fight is inevitable. I would love to, I wonder if that's the case here, right? Because, I've had people in other Bible studies I've led before be like, man, I just feel like the Old Testament was so violent. I feel like Israel was so violent. And I'm like, well, yeah, all that self-defense that was so necessary is just so violent. If you're Jephthah and you don't have the benefit of foresight to know what's coming, put yourself in this position, bro. Angry mob comes to your house. What's up? Hey, man, we got beef. What's the beef? You didn't let us beef in the other beef, so we gonna fry your beef, all right? We gonna burn your house down today, all right? What are you doing, bro? Are you calling the cops? Are you getting the shotgun? Are you getting the Glock? If you're not doing one of those 3 things, you might be dead before I finish this narrative. You might be, but us Americans, man, we're so blessed. We're not ever in this situation to ever have to make a life or death decision in the moment. And so when we read the accounts of people that did have to do that, we get to act like we're pacifists, but we're not, right? A pacifist is somebody that chooses to not fight in the face of violence. But here's the secret. You've never been in the face of violence. So you've never had an ability to choose pacifism because all you've ever had is peace. Most of us don't actually know what we would do if we were in a situation like this. All we know is the chronological snobbery of our time and also the because that's why against Yahweh. So we just complain about stories like this.
You raise an excellent point. In that they give him very little wiggle room to actually be diplomatic. He still attempts it. And I still think he's colored by what he just did.
And
that's causing. Yeah. So, out of the 2, he is the better option. But I can't say anyone's in the right here outside of the fact that you came here straight to me. I am going to have to defend myself because, I'm not the one who did something wrong.
Yeah, it's like, what you want me to do, bro? I was sitting here mourning the fact that I was being stupid, and now you don't want a box.
And now, as a result of this, 42,000 enemies of Israel? No, 42,000 Israelites who became enemies of Israel died.
Yeah.
That didn't have to happen.
Yeah, it's tragic, bro. It's like, there's another lesson, man. Are you mad for a reason that makes sense? All right? Because Satan would love for you to be mad at normal life. All right. I just really meditate on that concept, bro. Can you serve Jesus when normal life pisses you off? There's no room in people like these Ephraimites to display the fruit of the Spirit. If you're going to be mad at me because I took the burden of fighting and maybe dying off of your hands, where is the common ground that lets me reason and create an off-ramp from violence here?
Yeah.
And, culturally, we face that. This sort of stuff hits more home to me because I like to go out and do street side evangelism. And when you do that, you're more likely to encounter people like these Ephraimites who are going to start a fight with you while you're not doing anything at all to incite one over something that is nonsensical.
Mm.
And this is where because that's why becomes really dark. When you say to me, I want to kill you, and I try to engage reason to save my life, and you answer with, because that's why, and I say, that's not a reason, and you double down with, really? You don't see how that's not a reason? What other option do I have than self-defense that might become lethal to you, right? If you gave me a reason for why you want me dead, I would love to engage in spiritual warfare and defeat the argument that leads you to want to kill me. If I can beat the argument, I save my life and I win a new brother. But if the argument is just because, there's nothing to do but stop you. I'm not going to let you kill me. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's why I stressed earlier. I believe in martial pacifism. I think we do everything in our power to promote peace. And sometimes promoting peace means you fight. But that is as a last resort.
Yeah.
Or at the defense of another. Or defense of self. Jephthah is in the right to protect himself here. He's not the one in the wrong for what's going on. He's still hot-headed. He's still dealing with the mess that he ended up caused by himself. But doesn't mean he deserves anything that happens here.
Right.
Or be forced into the situation in the first place.
Right.
It's just a testament to how fallen Israel is without people leading them directly to God and them accepting God.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And we're not even, we're barely, is this halfway through the book of Judges? I don't think we're halfway yet. We might be about there. Halfway through the book of Judges, and the Israelites are getting murderously mad at good news.
And the next time you're going to be on here to finish off the book of Judges, we're going to see some similar things happening.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's going to be we're going to talk a lot about social justice movements and how they get poisoned, right? Because I think one of the folly points of the modern church in America, and I'm talking about the good side of the church, by the way, is this assumption that if you care about social justice, you must be a social justice warrior, and in a negative sense. And and how that I feel like can sometimes be a self-fulfilling prophecy, where there's a desire in us for justice, something unjust happened or something they believe to be unjust. They're trying to fight for justice. You insult them for this God-given desire. And because the church insulted them, they turn and double down in their allegiance with the world. And you end up creating the very thing that you say that you don't want to create. And part of the reason for that being we in the evangelical church, I think this is a real weakness. We love talking about the injustice in society and in false pagan religions. We love doing that, and we're good at that. But we're not just called to do that. God calls us positively to do justice from the story of Sodom and Gomorrah forward. Right? Why does God even talk with Abraham about Sodom and Gomorrah? He tells us, so that, Abraham, you will tell your children to always remember and always prioritize justice in the land. That's why I even entertained this conversation with you. That's why I did that, So let us remember that. Walk humbly with our God. Do justice. Do justice. At the end of Judges, we're going to have that conversation. How could they have done justice here? And what would that look like paralleled in our modern movements of justice if the church were to ever take a stand that wasn't just when you're doing it wrong? It's like,
Something to look
okay,
forward
they
to.
are, but can we do better?
Yeah. I don't know about you. The only other thing here that I have is the shibboleth. It's very few people use it in real life, but it's still part of the dictionary and the like that is passed on to this day. The idea being a saying that a particular group of people that would automatically out themselves as being that kind of people because of how they pronounce it or how they say it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm guessing there was some stereotype in Israel, those hick Ephraimites, how to say shibboleth, the shibboleth, like the bunch of children, they have a lisp like me. Like, I guess it was common enough that they had joked about their brothers, much in the same way. Like, I know there's a stereotype in Japan that people from Osaka are like idiots. And I don't know what started that. I just know it exists. Or like we have jokes about Yankees, they have joke about hick Southerners, same thing.
This is one of those brilliant. It's like, man, talk about just a self-filtering system. It's like, I know you can't say it right. That's how I know who you are, bro. Like, I think a slightly more one-to-one parallel with this would be more like trying to out a native Japanese person by making them say something with a lot of L's in it. Because the Japanese language doesn't do L's. So like any American word with an L, that L just gets replaced with a soft R, but it's not an L. Like if you know what lollipop sounds like, lollipop is not lollipop. You know what I'm saying? So it's like,
yes.
It's like, this is one of those things where it's like, it's a stereotype because it's true.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's so tough.
It's also kind of smart.
Man. Oh, man. And again, it's like, you brought this on yourself. You didn't have to fight me. You didn't realize I was this clever. Polly Palace, listen up.
You're next. We'll find that shibboleth soon enough. All right. We got one last part here. 8 through 15. After him, Ibzan of Bethlehem judged Israel. He had 30 sons and 30 daughters he gave in marriage outside his clan, and 30 daughters he brought in from outside for his sons. And he judged Israel 7 years. Then Ibzan died and was buried at Bethlehem. After him, Elon the Zebulunite judged Israel, and he judged Israel 10 years. Then Elon the Zebulunite died and was buried at Aijalon in the land of Zebulun. After him, Abdon, the son of Hillel, the Parathonite, judged Israel. He had 40 sons and 30 grandsons who rode on 70 donkeys, and he judged Israel 8 years. Then Abdon, the son of Hillel, the Parathonite, died and was buried at Pirathon in the land of Ephraim in the hill country of the Amalekites.
Nice. And once again, we close out with even more judges.
Yes.
Because again, Israel always, don't get it twisted, right? God is zooming in on certain judges so you can learn stuff about them, right? We saw the typology here with Jephthah, and I won't be here for it, but you'll see even more direct typology with Samson and his birth and all that stuff coming up, right?
With an appearance by Jesus.
With an appearance by, in this book about Judges. There's nothing about this, but you can elaborate on it next time, I guess. In this book about Judges, for whatever reason, when you get to Samson, you spend a lot of time talking about people that ain't judges. Why? Because the book of Judges, like every other book, is about Jesus, not really anyone else in the book. So if Jesus shows up during the book of Judges, we will make a special detour for the actual destination. Okay? But don't get it twisted. Just because we're narratively, right? In time, Ibzan of Bethlehem and Elon, all these guys had stories and adventures that were just as crazy as everyone else, right? But narratively, the Spirit of God, just like any other author, has a rhetorical point for writing this piece of literature, for having it inspired. And apparently, focusing on Ibzan and Elon and Abdon does not support the rhetorical point that the Holy Spirit has for judges. They're not important. They are important, but not for the narrative. And when you can understand that distinction, listener, you will go far in your understanding of the Bible, right? But Israel needed saving this whole time, right? If we just skip over this and we go from verse 7 to the start of chapter 13, you might mess around and think, oh, Israel was just fine during the interim. They weren't. We're just not talking about it.
They had judges there. And something you said kind of prompted this thought, like, if this was merely written by human authors who were just trying to transcribe stuff and pass it on to the next, why bother? Why bother with any of these people? Stories are supposed to be like exciting and fun and like, yeah, these are our heroes of the past and the like, and like look up to them. Yeah, Jephthah, he made some mistakes. He's just a regular guy like you. But like, wasn't it cool? You know, when he killed a bunch of Ammonites? We'll get to the Amalekites in a second. Like, but then what about Ibzan, Elon, Abdon, the two from before in chapter 10? Like, why would you do that? There's no purpose outside of just putting down names. But this is written with purpose by guided hands to be inspired. There is something to be gleaned here. And part of that's what you said. Another part is, look, they did the work. Yeah, I'm not going to write down everything that they did, but I wrote down their names, preserved for all time, because they did the work. They should be noted for it.
Those who do the will of God abide forever.
And like, there's many issues as I have with the Catholic Church. One of the greatest things that they do is speak of the saints, record their histories. This saint looked after this people here, made sure that they were fed. This saint lived in poverty, inspired other people to join this group and get work done for the Lord. Great. The Protestant church sucks at this.
I
complained about it before.
You're right. Yeah.
Like, I only learned about the people that I know because maybe someone used it as an illustration in a sermon. Those are the rare ones. Or I had a class. The vast majority of Protestants, they may hear the first option.
I won't lie. On that note, as we're kind of coming to the end, do you mind if I plug a future project real quick?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
On that note of learning the history of the real ones, come by Foreign Saints this June, right? For Juneteenth. And no, it's not woke, but it is woke in a spiritual sense, okay? I've got a project I'm releasing, Christianity versus a Ku Klux Christ.
Oh, yes. I remember talking about this one. Okay. Yes. Yep.
Christianity versus a Ku Klux Christ, bro. Where I've already done a 4-part series on slavery and the gospel. Episode 4 was looking at the abolitionists of slavery, mostly the white ones. This time, we're looking at the darker complexions, bro. Specifically, 4 of the most popular slave narratives at the time, during that time of colonial America, right? Oladoc Quino, Frederick Douglass, Mary Prince, and I forget the name of the 4th person. But then we're also looking at the fight against the Ku Klux Klan and how it was really Christianity, but by another name. That was the driving force against the Klan. Be a great history lesson, and I also hope opens your eyes to quite a few things that have happened in the past and are happening now, right? So I'm looking forward to that, ripping apart the polypals and bringing forgotten history to light. Because, as one of my favorite Christian poets ever said, America is a land that slays its prophets, but not with sticks and stones, but through legacies untold. On Foreign Saints, I plan to remedy that. So come by this June and see what I got cooked up.
See, and that's what you're going to get. You subscribe to his channel, podcast. Like, you're not just going to get what we get here. Like, I'm very, very narrow. You know what? That's fine. That's what I'm supposed to do. Karai? All over the place. The ADHD kind of comes out sometimes.
Doesn't it, though? You see the titles?
He's going to hit martyrs. He's going to get persecution across the world. He's going to get in Matthew, and eventually he's going to finish it one day. You get the polypals and beyond. Like, look, there's great content over there. There's a reason I work with him. It's not just because we're friends. It's because the man does the work. So go out there, support him as best you can. All 10 of you listening right now.
Oh, it's more than that by now, I'm sure.
Oh, it is. But it's funny to say Tim.
Isn't it, though?
All right, guys, thank you for all that you do. Really appreciate your support. Oh, no, wait, there was one last thing. Amalekites. I'm sorry. Thinking of ADHD. Untested, by the way. The fact that it does end with Ammon living in the hill country of the Amalekites is a worrying factor to me, because they're not supposed to be alive, number one. But number two, they're living amongst the Israelites, and they're acting like that's no big deal.
Mm-hmm.
So sorry to end on a sour note there, but we're also in Judges.
Every note is sour.
So with that in mind, thank you all for what you guys do. Please leave a 5-star review on your podcasting platform of choice. Help us with ratings there, help us find more people. Feel free to share the show with your friends and family members. If you're interested in mind fiction writing, you can find my works at starvarietyskill.com or on Amazon by searching for the name MC Ashley. If you're all interested in some further solid studies into Bible and its teaching, go out and check out some Foreign Saints, but also check out the other members of the NSL Ministries Podcasting Network. You can find me specifically on Systematic Ecology, Why I Don't Like, Friday Night Frights, Spidey Swing Bites, and some Joyful Noises. You can contact me at letnothingmoviepodcast@gmail.com. I'd like to extend a special thank you to Joshua Knoll for the editing that he does and for the music he has to the podcast. And with all that in mind, God bless you in accordance to his will, not mine. Allow me one more time to remind you, let nothing move you.